Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. Today we have a lot of really fun things to play with, from pattern papers to dazzles to cutting dies. Now I'm going to move aside the dazzles and the dies just for a moment, and we can take a closer look at this gorgeous paper collection from our friends at Crafters Companion. This is the Thankful and Blessed 12 by 12 paper pad, and it contains 36 absolutely stunning double-sided pattern papers. So let's flip through and we can talk about some of these designs. Now you will have 3 of each design, and as you can see here, these are just gorgeous. So you've got a nice big floral pattern on one side. The other side will have a coordinating geometric. Things are really easy to mix and match in this set. And I just think these florals are irresistible. Have a look at this color palette too. It's really beautiful. Very versatile, great for themes of all different kinds for card making and paper crafting. But who wouldn't love to get a card with something so beautiful? And they're a really nice sturdy weight of cardstock as well, perfect for either using as the base of your card if you're using some of the card base cutting dies, or you can also use it to cover the front of a blank white card. And of course, I'm going to be doing a bit of both today. So this is our paper pack. Now, to go along, I'm also using the garden wreath die from Hot Off the Press. This has 6 cutting dies that fit in perfectly with today's theme. I'm also playing with some dazzles. I have the fern dazzles, I have the mushroom dazzles, and I have the woodland dazzles. And these are all going to go along together to coordinate beautifully. We have so many gorgeous things to create with today. I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm excited to explore the creative possibilities with you. So come play with us. Let's start with this fun card, which features the garden wreath die as an easy and eye-catching focal. All you really need is a background paper to go along, and this beautiful sheet from today's collection gives us the color and dimension. So let's have another look at that sheet. I've pulled one out here, and you can see that you've got lots of different areas on this 12 by 12 sheet from which to choose. So depending on whether you want more of the pine boughs in here, or maybe you want more of the florals, that's the area I chose. You've got lots of different options here. So I've cut the floral paper slightly smaller than the card front, and then I inked the edges with velvet fawn. Now this is a really nice way to add a little bit of shading and dimension on there. So all I need to do is just hold my ink pad, and you can see that ink pad on here. I'm holding on to the base. The pad itself is raised, which means that I can very easily come along the edge and either add quite a heavy bit of inking for a lot of dimension, or I can be a little bit more light-handed. And then let me grab a piece of white cardstock. You can see here how that just adds some shading and dimension on there. Really nice. Very quick and easy to do. Velvet Fawn happens to be one of my very favorite colors to use because it's such a great neutral, and it really does work with just about any color palette. So that's what I've done before I glued this onto the front of my card. Now I've got this really nice white frame around the edges, which coordinates nicely with the white wreath. So let's take a look at the garden wreath die. Here, let me bring this in. So you've got a 4-inch wide wreath plus 5 accent pieces, and you can use these accent pieces with the wreath or of course separately. And the design can be seasonal, as with the pumpkin, or pretty much all purpose. Of course, hot off the press, they always give you a project idea on the back for a little bit of inspiration. Now, one suggestion, with an intricate die like the wreath, I really like using the quick release die paper. And so this comes on a roll like this, and all you do is cut off a piece of it, and I'm going to take off this die here, and you'll simply nest the paper in between, or the quick release paper, in between the die and the paper or cardstock you're cutting from. And it really does make a big difference in cutting those intricate dies. It just makes the little innies come out much more easily. So a big favorite here in my crafting room. I use that quite a lot. So that's the quick release die paper. Now, when you die cut the wreath, you will also get, you'll get your wreath, of course. You'll also get this little innie portion too. And you can discard this if you want. You can also die cut two separate colors and nest one inside the other. And that's what I've done here. So I've die cut my wreath from plain white cardstock, and then the innie portion I've die cut from green cardstock. Now the cardstock that I'm using throughout today's webisode is from the Romantic Florals cardstock collection. You can see all of those colors in here, and those just worked really nicely with the colors in our pattern paper today. So that's what I've done here to create a really nice double effect. Now when I had the two of those pieces together, I secured them together with a little bit of tape on the back. And then before I placed this onto the card front, I added some foam tape just behind this green portion. So because the wreath and the innie are taped together on the back, then I don't have to worry about trying to cut really tiny pieces of foam tape to go on this intricate area here. So I've got some lift underneath here without having to worry about the adhesive. And then I've got two oak leaves here. Those are die cut from cardstock. And I've included some leaves and some swirl accent pieces from the Fern Dazzle set. And I really love how the copper gives this nice warm tint. Then for the inside of my wreath, I'm using a sentiment from the Grateful, Thankful, Blessed Dazzle sheet. And I've got the white sticker on here, but of course they come in other colors. You can see here with the silver, this is another really nice one to have on hand. And these just go beautifully for so many different card occasions. And I've also got a little bow tied here in 1/8 inch ribbon. I use these ribbons a lot. You can see I don't have very much left in my pack here. And I do have a couple of ribbons that I've already tied into bows. Sometimes when I have some extra time or when I'm playing around with how things look, I tie some of these bows and then I've just got them ready to go. Now here's a little tip that I recommend. When you've got your bow already tied, what I like to do is use a little bit of my Creative Expressions acrylic glue. And I love this precision applicator. It just makes it so much easier to apply a little dab of glue on the knot of the bow. And then I would set this, position it wherever I want it to go on my die cut piece. Take a clear acrylic stamping block and pop that on top, and then let that dry. Now the nice thing about the acrylic block, because it's see-through, you can make sure that your bow isn't kind of sliding around. Sometimes that can happen if you put a book on top or some magazines. That just helps make sure that everything stays in place. Then for my card inside, I've got some of this red cardstock, and I've added more of the pattern paper plus a portion of the wreath die cut. I just trimmed off the edges with scissors. Now, when gluing down the wreath or any intricate die or die cut piece, I really do recommend using sticky specks. So the sticky specks come in a package that look like this. These are micro dots of adhesive. And I usually just cut off a portion like this. You can see that there's a liner on here. Now the orange part has these micro dots, and all you do is simply place your die cut onto those dots, press it down, lift it off, and then the dots have transferred to the back of your die. And it just makes it so much easier to glue things in place without having glue sort of going all over in there. So if you're gluing something intricate straight down onto your paper, I do recommend those sticky specks. Makes things a lot easier. Then on the inside, I've got the Sending Smiles Dazzle message. So here's another sheet there. You can see the white, and they come in lots of different fonts and arrangements. You've also got some of these small accent pieces on there too. And that just adds a really nice touch. And the Sending Smiles and the Grateful, Thankful, Blessed Dazzles go together really nicely for your card fronts and insides. For this card, I've also started with a base featuring a beautiful floral design. So let's take another look at this sheet. I think it is absolutely stunning. It's one of my favorites. And I really love how you can select which portion of the design you want to use. So whichever area of that floral works best for your card design. And of course, this is the section that I decided to use right down here. I think the illustration is just stunning. And of course, these designs work beautifully whether your card is going vertically or horizontally. So I've trimmed down my paper, inked it with that velvet fawn, and then simply glued it to the front of my card. Now my focal is a die cut label from the 8 labels for your greeting set. And I cut this from hammered gold paper. So let's have a look at this. This is also one of my favorites. And this is from hot off the press. It just works beautifully with those rich tones that are in the pattern paper design. And it adds a nice touch of soft metallic elegance. It's very subtle though. Now you may notice that I have 2 label die cuts on here. So I've got the hammered gold, and then underneath I have another label, the same one, die cut from white cardstock. And the 2 are just slightly offset in order to create kind of a shadow effect. So let's have a look here. This is the die set that I'm working with. I love this one. You've got your 8 labels, you've got some straight edge ones, and then you've got lots of sort of scalloped designs, which you can use nested together if you want to, or individually. Of course, hot off the press, they always give you some inspiration in there. So what I've done here is die cut my 2 label pieces. I've got one from the hammered gold and one just from plain white cardstock. And then what I did is added some foam tape to the back of my hammered gold piece and placed it slightly offset on that white piece. And that just gives a little bit of extra dimension and kind of a shadow effect on here. Now, my sentiment here is from the Birthday Dazzle set, and I chose the white because they coordinate really nicely, not only with the white edges of my card blank and also this shadow piece, but it helps to pick up some of the white tones and the lighter tones in the floral paper. So one little tip that I want to, actually 2 little tips that I want to share with you. So here's what's left of my Birthday Dazzle set. Now, with your dazzles, you've got some innies in with the words. So for example, in this Y here, you can see there's a little innie still in there. With some of these larger words, what I tend to do before I pull them up off the sheet is remove the innies first and get those all out of there. And that just makes it easier for me, I've found, to remove them rather than pulling off the whole word with those little innies inside and then trying to get the innies out, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Now another tip that I have for you is when you're aligning your word dazzles and you want them to go onto a die cut piece, but you need to kind of figure out the positioning and placement, is to take off the dazzle and put it on the edge of a ruler. And I've got just the very bottom portion of that birthday word on there. And then what I can do is kind of play with the positioning. Where do I want this to go? How will it fit on my die cut piece? Of course, you can add your dazzles to your paper and then do the die cutting. But I found that for me, it really makes it a little bit easier. I know how much space exactly I'm working with. And so then what I'll do is place down my word, my dazzle, and I'll kind of position down just the top portion and then gently tug away my ruler. And then I've got my dazzle positioned in place. It is really helpful, especially if you've got some of those longer words that you need to align, and if you've got more than one word that you want to make sure you've got straight on your piece. So then on here, I've also got a nice big fluffy bow. This is from the crepe ribbon set. And I've got some of those beautiful fern dazzles just tucked behind the label. Then for my card inside, I have a strip of cardstock. I've got some more dazzles and more of those gorgeous fern images. I love the circular step cards. I think they are just so much fun to make and, fun to receive as well. So here I've made the folded card base from a floral pattern paper and then layered a plaid paper down at the bottom. This is a really easy process to do and a great way to mix your two patterned papers. So this is the die that I'm working with. As you can see, it's just one main piece. So you'll run this through your die cutting machine. And of course, hot off the press, not only are they giving you a project idea, they're also making sure that you've got your folding diagram on here. The M is for your mountain fold, the V is for your valley fold, so that once you die cut your piece, you'll have something that looks like this. And just follow along with that diagram and fold up that mountain fold and fold down the valley folds. A bone folder is also really going to come in handy to make sure that you've got nice crisp lines on there. Now I've die cut my base, as I mentioned, from the floral design. One thing that you just want to keep in mind when you're positioning your die down before you secure it down and run it through your die cutting machine, you'll want to have a second look at what's on the other side of your double-sided pattern paper, because of course what will be on the inside, you'll probably want to have the design running the way you want it to go. So in this case, I've got this really nice kind of a subtle striped effect, but I wanted to make sure that those stripes were reading evenly across the inside. So just have a second look before you run that through your die cutting machine. So this is the base that I've added on here, and then I've got my coordinating plaid paper. So let's have a look here at how to add this plaid design on the front of the card. So I'm going to take my sample piece here, and all I've done is taken some glue stick and applied that glue just on this bottom portion of the front of my card. Then I positioned this plaid paper right on top, even with this fold up here. Make sure that that's really evenly done. Smooth it down, let that glue dry really thoroughly, and then flip it over, and I use a pair of scissors to trim around the outside edge. And then I've got my two patterned paper effect. Now in between those two papers, I've got some gold straight line dazzles. And I love this set because it's super versatile, really, really useful. You've got some narrow borders. You've also got some thicker ones. I use the thicker one here. And they just create a really nice polished effect in between two patterned papers. Then for my focal, I've got a circle and scalloped die. Now this is a die set that I use a lot, as you can tell from my packaging on here. These are fantastic for creating a spotlight effect for your focal, as I've done here. And then I've got an image from the Woodland Dazzles. Now, I did some fussy cutting on this tree. I backed it onto green cardstock and then trimmed around. And it is fussy to do, but I really like the look. And it made it possible for me to also pop this up on foam tape for some dimension. Then I've got some pine cones also backed with cardstock. This one is foam taped up on top of the larger one. And then to balance on the card front, I've got 3 smaller pine cones also backed with cardstock and some snowflake dazzles up here. And this little bow is from the jute twine set. This is one that I use quite a lot. And these just add really nice, kind of a soft touch of texture on a card without a lot of bulk. Then for my card inside, I have a simple greetings message and another little pine cone image. I can't resist making a tag in a bag project, and today's papers plus the mushroom dazzles are just so much fun together, and you can create a really sweet and very easy project like this one. So of course I'm using the tag in a bag cutting dies set, one of my all-time favorites. You'll have the die for the bag and of course one for the tag. And so once you have die cut those pieces, I'll show you just quickly here. This is the bag portion. You can see you've got a nice kind of decal edge up here at the top. And all you need to do is just fold in the sides, fold up the bottom, secure everything down with a little bit of maybe extra sticky tape, and you are ready to go. And then you've also got, of course, your tag shape, which fits perfectly right inside. So that's what I've used here. Let's have another look at our tag and our bag. So here's the bag, which I've die cut from this really beautiful plaid paper. So simply place that die down on there, ran it through my die cutting machine, folded it up, and I'm ready to go. Now I've also got this beautiful floral design on the inside because of course that's the reverse of that plaid pattern. So this works really nicely with your double-sided pattern papers, especially when they coordinate together. Then I've taken some of that beautiful floral and just wrapped it around the entire folded bag, and I've matted it onto a really light brown cardstock to give a little bit of contrast between these two pattern papers. Now the front has this adorable mushroom dazzle, which I've backed onto different cardstock colors. So the mushroom dazzles come in a set of 3. You've got black, brown, and gold. And you've got some large mushrooms like you can see here. You've also got some smaller ones. You've also got some little ones nested in here. Now when you're backing this with different colors of either pattern paper or cardstock, a couple of tips. So this is the process I used when putting this together. So I've got the sticky portion here, so I'm trying to be a little bit careful about that. I started with the top of my mushroom, so the mushroom cap, which I backed with red. So if I flip this over, you can see I've just simply positioned the top of the dazzle onto that red cardstock. And I used a pair of fine tip scissors just to cut. I kind of lifted this up gently and cut around that gentle curve on here. And then once I had that, I backed it with this kind of mustard color for the center portion, and I slid in a bit of brown cardstock to create the stem or the stalk of this. So again, I'll turn this over so that you can see the yellow cardstock is all the way up on the top, and I would just simply use a bit of glue to secure that in place. Trim around this and then trim around the outside of that brown cardstock. So I started first with the red, then went to the yellow, and then tucked up a little piece of that brown cardstock and placed the bottom portion of this dazzle down, and then I can trim around the outside edge. It's a little bit of fussy cutting, but it does create a really nice effect there. And a good pair of small precision scissors and some good lighting and your glasses will really make it easy. So I've got my dots here that are also from the sticker sheet. So you can see those are left over in here. And I've just added those on top. Then I've got a smaller mushroom down here also backed, and I've got a patch of that green grass down at the bottom. Now this is all popped up on foam tape. Then I've got one of my sending smiles dazzles here, right positioned, kind of tucked underneath that mushroom. And of course the sending smiles dazzles also has some little heart shapes on there. So I've added one onto our mushroom. So that's the front of the bag. And then with the tag, I've die cut this from brown cardstock and layered it with the floral paper. And I've got another little mushroom on here. And I've also added the happy birthday sentiment from the birthday dazzles sheet. So I've got another project that I want to show you. This is our final one. You can use, of course, just the tag portion of the tag in a bag die set. And I do this a lot because the tag die is just a perfect size and it's useful for lots of projects. So being 5 inches tall and 3 inches wide, you can also tie it on the top of a gift package. So I've cut it from this absolutely stunning floral paper. And again, you can really position where you want that tag die to go. In fact, let me show you this with the die. So you can position it wherever you'd like it to go, kind of play around with which area of that paper you want to use. And then, of course, run it through your die cutting machine and you're ready to go. I've inked the edges with Velvet Fawn to add some shading around here. And then I've got a simple greeting inside the square and scalloped die piece. So this is another one of my, as you can tell, very favorite die sets. So this just makes a really nice focal image for my tag. And I've die cut that from the plaid paper, which coordinates. I've got a white scalloped piece underneath here to again set off and contrast a little bit between those two pattern paper designs. And I've also got another fern dazzle in here for a little bit of texture and shine, one up at the top and one at the bottom. Now I've also used some of the garden wreath leaf images on here just as a little accent piece. And I have another bow tied in that 1/8 inch ribbon. Now I could have also used some of that ribbon up at the top of the tag, and I would if I was tying it onto a gift parcel, but I had a spare snippet of pattern paper, so I just looped that through instead. And that is our final project of the day today. So a big thank you to our friends at Crafter's Companion for an absolutely stunning selection of patterned papers and a value-packed one as well. I've made lots of projects today, but I still have so many papers to use for future projects. A big thank you to you for joining me today. We are so happy that you're here, and we're happy you're a part of our Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, have a look in the description box below this video. You'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 3 to 5 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.